Hi and welcome to the maiden edition of The Tracker right here on City TV. My name is Benjamin Nketa. Usually I'll be looking for my passport and my travel documents and my binoculars because what we are about to do is go globe-trotting where we are going to remove the veil and tell you exactly what our Ghanaian brothers and sisters are doing out there with their sporting careers. It could be athletes, it could be basketball, it could be football, it could be boxing, it could be whatever. Just on today's show, it's a strictly football affair. Daniel Opare is in the mix. Andre Dede Ayew is on his way to Turkey. He's in the mix as well. Kwadwo Asamoah has just missed an opportunity to play with Cristiano Ronaldo. There's a lot to talk about on the show and a lot to digest as well. Let's take a short break. When we come back, I introduce my guest and we get the show on the way. Welcome back to The Tracker here on City TV. Now, of course, the show is an interactive one, so you can join the feed on social media. Just use the hashtag CitySports. You can tweet at me at Kojo Nketia, and I will be too happy to read out your tweets. Today, my partner in crime is looking slick, looking like a professor. You could even pass for a football agent if somebody did not know you well. Fentio Tahiru, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, man. I love the dugout instead.
Meaning you're vying for Mauricio Sarri's job.
You see that in there? I want to be like Pep Guardiola.
Just keep the sticks away. You know what I'm talking about. But I mean, today's conversation is juicy. Yeah. We start off with a player that I have keen interest in. I mean, he plays for, or he used to play for one of the clubs that I have followed since my childhood. Yeah. I'm talking about none other than Daniel Opare. Right. Controversial character. He's become sort of a nomad over the years. So started off at the Real Madrid Castilla, and then he moved on to Belgium, where he played his football with Standard Liège. From Standard Liège, it's just really gone downhill. It's been meandering. It's been topsy-turvy for the young man. He has landed finally, after years in Porto and in Germany, back again in Belgium. Not with the bigger teams, but Royal Antwerp. Fent, how did a player who was primed for big things arrive at this juncture?
Well, Opare's story is a very tricky one. You know, if you look at the way he left Real Madrid, you have to say that he wasn't the luckiest. Because at the time when he was supposed to make his debut for Real Madrid, that particular season, he was called into the senior team. And during training, he got injured. And he would have made a mark. He would have made his debut for Real Madrid. And you never know, because a lot could have changed since then. But as fortune had it, it didn't happen. And he's found himself in places where he's found home, but somehow he's always managed to mess it up. It happened with Standard Liège. He found home. He was going amazing. Then somehow he left and went to FC Porto. It was on the rise. And then people thought, okay, big things. It didn't really work out. He went to France, I think, Bastia. It didn't necessarily work out. So he's really been everywhere. He's gone to Besiktas before. And then last time out, 2 years ago, he landed himself in Germany, where he was really settled with Augsburg. He was one of their most reliable players.
That's very true.
Yes, he was playing season in, season out. He was playing day in, day out, week in, week out. He was consistent. He signed a short-term contract. And at that point on, it almost looked as if that Opare's career was back on track again. He got invited back to the national team, where his inconsistent performances at club level has led to inconsistent appearances at the Black Stars level as well. When he's always been on the rise, he's gotten his chance. He was on the rise when he was at Augsburg. He got his chance back into the national team. He played a couple of matches. And then 6 months left to the end of his contract. He was linked to pretty much almost every club all around there. Leicester City were involved. Clubs in Germany, Schalke themselves were involved. And then in the general transfer window, at the same time, Augsburg were negotiating for a contract extension with him. But he turned it down because he really wanted to make a step up or move abroad or move somewhere else. And then he got himself involved in very a very cheeky meeting with soccer officials when they shouldn't have, and then from then on he never made any appearances at all. So his stock definitely took a massive hit since then, and now he's landed in Belgium. I think that two things. One is a league that he already knows, having played for Standard Liège before. Yep. Antwerp nowadays is not the most...
I mean, back in the early 90s, a lot of Ghanaian players passed through the Antwerp system.
Now he's no longer, it doesn't come with the same sort of, you know, class and respect that he used to command. But he's still in a valuable league. He's still in the very competitive league in Belgium, where they play a lot more attention to technical abilities. And Opare is definitely that kind of player that can thrive in a league like that. He's done it there before. I just think that if he can be consistent, a few more years, maybe one good season or two good seasons, he can still make that dream move to the EPL, which is what we understand he's always wanted. And because at the age of 27, it's not that he's not that old. He's still got...
He's still just about entering his prime, actually.
Exactly. So I think it's not too late. He's definitely taking a massive hit. He could have been somewhere else. He could have been at a bigger club if things had turned out differently from what he did in January up to the end of the season. But I think that this is still not the most disastrous moves for him. He just needs to stay fit, play a lot of matches, and I can see him getting a chance with the Black Stars for AFCON 2019.
So Daniel Opare, the nomad there, the word on him is that he needs to stay fit, he needs to play a lot of games, and who knows, hopefully he might just be back on the radar of the national team handlers before long. But another player whose situation was supposed to be a grass to grey situation has turned into not all that glitters is gold. I'm talking about none other than Leicester City's Daniel Amartey. So when he moved from Copenhagen to Leicester, everybody in Ghana was elated. We are going to see our player in the EPL. But it's become a nightmare very quickly because the young man all of a sudden is not getting game time under different rotation of managers. So this season, with Harry Maguire hitting top form at the World Cup and coming back, and Morgan obviously going nowhere, Fent, Daniel Amartey's chaotic situation at Leicester City has just widened and has just put on a bolder face.
I mean, Ben, I have a very simple question. What is he still doing there?
Maybe he's just biding his time, hoping that something will happen.
I mean, I think Amartey is good enough to be playing for a mid-table team in France, in Belgium, in Portugal, pretty much anywhere else.
Maybe the Premier League money is good.
You know, yes, but it's not all about money, is it? He's young. And you really don't want to rot on the bench at this age just taking money. I mean, if he was 32 and he isn't playing...
Maybe he's playing the card of, this might be just about my biggest paycheck. So let me milk this paycheck for what it's worth. And then when that is over, I can move on to something else.
You can still do it. You can still take your money. If you get a loan move, you still earn your salary. Except that your club, your parent club, doesn't get to pay all of it. But you still get to take all your money.
But you know, some of these loan moves can be complicated, where teams can sometimes demand that your club foot all your salary just so they can have you on the footballing terms.
Yes, and that, you know, and that usually happens with younger players, where the club is desperate to see their player get minutes, right? I don't think that any Leicester City will go into any loan agreement where they're just paying another, because Daniel Amartey is not just going there to be a player that should be monitored or give him minutes so he can get experience. He's got experience in abundance. If he goes to any club, he's coming to help you. So you need to pay for some of the wages. You can strike a deal, maybe a 50-50, 70-30, you never know. But I really do think that Daniel Amartey needs to get out of Leicester, and he needs to do it now. Because at this point in time, because he cannot afford to spend one more season rotting on the bench. And the situation is not about to change. It's the same manager, Claude Puel. And even if Harry Maguire leaves, Amartey will still not be trusted in the centre-back position. And that's one of the most dangerous things in this situation there. We know Amartey to be a central defender, but he's never been trusted to be one at Leicester. He's always been seen as a backup right back or a backup holding midfielder. And Daniel Amartey doesn't excel at any of those. He excels at one role, and that one role is centre-back position. And that's the one role that he's never been trusted with at Leicester City. So that's a big problem for him. Even if the chance comes, in the case of Maguire leaving, they're still not going to trust him. Because when they lost another centre-back, they brought in Harry Maguire. They didn't trust him with the role.
That's true. That's true.
And then when you got Danny Simpson on the right-hand side, if he's not injured, he's always going to play. And if it is holding midfield, ever since they brought in Wilfred Ndidi, he's not had any chance in the central defensive midfield position. So I think that the solution for Daniel Amartey is to get out there. And he's really good enough for a mid-table team in France, in Turkey, in Portugal, in Germany in particular. I mean, it's a place that I think will help him a lot because he's still, I think, 22 years old, 23 years old. So he's still really young. He's got a lot more ahead of him. But what's important, what needs to happen now, he needs to leave Leicester.
Daniel Amartey needs to get out of Leicester City, and he needs to do it fast. But guess what? We have a special guest who will be joining us on the show in a couple of minutes. One of the more experienced brains with regards to the writing of football in this country. So you should look out for that one. He will be on in a bit. Let's turn our attention now to another one who used to excite us. And I'm using the word used to excite us very cautiously. The star is beginning to dim on Newcastle's Christian Atsu. His bigger problem, I believe, is the re-arrival of Brazilian wingback Kennedy. Last season, it looked as if Rafael Benitez was going to use both men on the flanks. I saw them play together for 3 matches, and then all of a sudden, Atsu was relegated to the bench, and Kennedy was in his role. How much of a headache is Kennedy to Atsu, and should he really be worried?
I think so, yeah. Atsu has to be worried. Listen, I mean, there was time we called him the Ghanaian Messi. I remember reading an article on the BBC.
I honestly thought, and it was written, I honestly thought that comparison was absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, you saw the same article?
I did see it. I did.
They called him the Ghanaian Messi.
Answer to...
You know, I mean, but Ben, let's be honest here. When Atsu first burst onto the scene at FC Porto, when we didn't see much of him, a lot of us were quite excited.
I mean, we hadn't had a player with flamboyance like that in a while.
You know, but as in when he got the chance with the top teams in the more difficult leagues, he was beginning. We were beginning to come to terms with the real qualities of Atsu.
That's true.
And that he wasn't absolutely up there. He's got some trickery to go with. But Atsu has a big problem beating players 1v1. He can sometimes dribble too much and get himself into trouble. That's what a player like Kennedy doesn't do. And that's the thing about these South American players. They're so direct. He's only thinking about one thing. Going past you and then going straight at goal. I think that Atsu needs to be more ambitious in the way... he doesn't score so many for me. And for a player of his quality, and it's not like he can't do it. I mean, we've seen him score some outrageous goals in Black Stars jersey.
You get the sense that for somebody who's played in the number of teams he's played in and with the level of experience he's garnered, he still doesn't have his full game together.
Exactly. The killer instinct is still lacking. And when you have players as young as Kennedy with the speed and trickery and the killer instinct...
With the benefit of being Brazilian as well.
Thank you. He comes with... It's absolutely... And this is... And you see, it's not coming from anywhere different. It's coming from Chelsea. The same club Atsu came from. So I don't know, but I think that he doesn't need to leave Newcastle United, unlike Amartey that has to leave Leicester. I think Atsu can stay and fight for his position because if he fights hard enough, that wing-back role can be his. And that attacking left side of Newcastle's attack can be his. Kennedy can always shift into the left-back position because that's a place that he's played before. It's a place he's played a couple of times for Newcastle. Atsu, on the other hand, doesn't have the same versatility. He can't play a left-back. Kennedy can. So if Atsu can get that attacking wing-back position back from Kennedy, Kennedy can still play along with Atsu, except Kennedy will play further back. But if he allows a more defensive-minded Kennedy to be able to steal his position and attacking-wise, that would be a little bit unfortunate. But I think that he needs to stay fit. He needs to, because last season, one of the things that didn't help him was that he got injured at a very crucial stage of the season, around the same time that Kennedy came on. And by the time he got fit and came back, Kennedy had already taken his position. And sometimes that's what you don't want. So stay fit, fight for your position. I believe that he's got... In this Newcastle team, they don't necessarily have too many talented players in the full mold of Atsu. I think Atsu was top 5, now maybe top 7 as far as the talent pool at Newcastle is concerned. So if he can stay fit, I think he can still win his position back.
Well, Christian Atsu has a headache at Newcastle, but there's a lot more to discuss on the show. Raphael Dramina, after his heart scare, is featuring on the show today. Andre Dede Ayew, of course, reports that he's heading for Turkey. He will also feature on the show. And then Inter Milan's Kwadwo Asamoah. How did he decide that when Cristiano Ronaldo was arriving, was the best time to move? I don't even know. Let's take a short break. We'll be back.
For regular news checks as they unfold. 2020 news, all day, all the time. Politics, sports, entertainment, business, and more. 2020 news. We bring you the world in 20 minutes.
And that's all the news in 20 minutes.
Tune in to The Point of View, Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 p.m. as Bernard Avlet takes the news further. He will bring the right guests, ask them the relevant questions, and get you the real insights you need on the big stories for the day. The Point of View with Bernard Avlet, Monday and Wednesday nights, only on City TV.
Welcome back to the tracker here on City TV with me, Benjamin Nketiah. Like I promised you, we have an experienced head with us in the studio. He's traveled and written a lot about Ghanaian football. Today, he helps us to digest what's going on with our brothers around the globe. Jerome Ochre. Jerome, it's nice to have you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Nice one. Let's talk about Raphael Dramina. He hit form on his Black Stars debut. He literally struck gold on his debut. Yeah. And then the EPL vultures started coming. Brighton and Hove Albion. There was a move on the scope. A heart condition ensured that that would not be possible. But now, I mean, he went back and helped his club side. It looks like interest is beginning to come again for the young man. If you were Raphael, what would be a prudent career move for you? I mean, stay in Switzerland or move to a powerhouse team?
Well, with what happened initially, I mean, he was on the verge of moving, as you said, and some medical condition that created some controversy because from his club, it was clear that he was okay. I mean, he was fit enough to go. But checks elsewhere indicated that no, he wasn't up to that mark. I think that if I was to be in his shoes, I would want to stagger that move, wait a little, and see what I can do in Zurich before I consider any other thing. Because if care is not taken and you make another move,
and you feel another medical,
it's going to have psychological effects on him. Yeah. I feel that he should take his time, maybe spend a season more to see what will happen in Zurich, and then afterwards he can move. But that incident, I mean, that story about his medical exam, he failing his medical exam was a blow. I mean, it was one that hit a lot of us because I don't think that, I don't know if clubs have different standards. Yeah. I mean, standards in terms of the exams that they do medically. Because if I'm fit to play in Zurich, what is it that will make me unfit?
Sort of like the Remy situation at a point. Exactly. Not fit to play here, but fit to play elsewhere.
So perhaps it's the standards with which they use or they measure. If not, that thing was really unfortunate for Dramina.
Well, let's move to La Liga, where Emmanuel Boateng plays his football. The assassin of Barcelona. That's what I call him.
I mean, the moment you mentioned his name, that is what came to mind. I mean, a lot of Ghanaians perhaps didn't know him. I mean, I didn't know him even when he was at Charlton FC. But that game shot him to limelight. And a lot of us started talking about him. I think that if there is anything that he has to do, he needs to build on that form. Because everything shows that he has the form to play. I mean, he has that knack to score. If he can score twice against Barca, and not just that confidence to play and end what would have been an unbeaten record for Barca, it means that the potential is there. He's young, and if he can really take his chances when he gets the opportunity, I see the future being bright for him.
I mean, talk to me just a little bit about his Black Stars prospects, because he was invited for the last 2 friendly games against Iceland and Japan.
I think we will need to slow down a bit on him. I don't think that
everybody else who shows up on the striking scene, we call him Asamoah Gyan's successor.
Because in the past, we've had instances where players of such nature came, they played their first game, they were bright, next few matches, and then they go off. Sure. I think we need to be a little slow on him. I'm not saying he's not good. He's good enough to be called, he's good enough to be used, but then we should be careful when and how we use him. So that, should it happen that his confidence doesn't come in a game, he can take time to build that confidence and move on in subsequent matches.
Now, the last player we'll talk about here is Kojo Asamoah. He's moved to Juventus. He's moved to Inter Milan after spending 6 seasons in Juventus. I find this timing very odd because he decided to move at a time when Cristiano Ronaldo arrived at Juventus. Jerome, Kojo bundled between left wing back, central midfield. What is the way forward for the young man?
Kojo is an absolute talent. I mean, if you check the number of time, the number of years that he spent, and then deciding to move on, I'm not sure he knew that.
You think he would have made a different decision if he knew?
Probably, because I mean, Ciro has.
Who doesn't want to play with Ronaldo?
It would be fun to be with him in the same team. But given the number of years he spent, maybe it was time for him to move on. But perhaps if he had gotten wind of Ciro coming, he probably would have changed his mind. But I mean, he's a great talent. I would love to see him back in the national team and then see how he would contribute to our success.
Is Dede Ayew going to be a success in Turkey?
I cannot tell. I have not followed Turkish football so well. But from what I knew from the past, and then even the little that I know now, I have a feeling that he would have to do more than he's done in the past to really stay on top. Because you see, Turkish football, we really haven't seen them in Europe that well, like we used to do in the past. And Dede would have to do more. I mean, he's a fighter. I mean, he's a strong player. He has that mental ability to take on situations and come out of it well. If he can do that in Turkey, perhaps he will be good there.
Well, from Kojo Asamoah to Dede Ayew to Raphael Dramina to Christian Atsu, we have unpacked the progress of these Ghanaian players just for today. And I promise you that as the show goes on, we will be unveiling and unearthing players from all kinds of obscure corners of the world that you didn't even know existed. I promise you that for sure. And like I said, it's not just a purely football thing. There are athletes, there's basketball, there's boxing also in the mix as well. So the maiden edition of the Tracker, of course, focused on football. But in subsequent editions, we'll be giving you a lot more with regards to wherever our Ghanaian athletes are. Nepal, Tibet, Alaska, be it wherever. I'm telling you, we'll find them. Jerome, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you for the chance.
Well, that will be all for our show tonight, or our show today on The Tracker. My name is Benjamin Nketia. See you next Monday. You never know where the next destination will be.
You're into the Breakfast Daily on CTTV. Stonebwoy says so. Keep it locked. Don't log off.
We spice up your mornings with culturally enriched conversations, social interviews, and policy-oriented discussions that will keep you updated on the progress of the nation.
And that is the reason I was making the point to him that I refrained from responding to this Joyce Bauer statement. Because if some citizens have accused President Mahama of diverting a certain amount of money, deal with that, deny him, and move on with your life.
Join the Breakfast Daily team Monday through Fridays from 7:30 a.m. to 10. Let your voice be heard with the hashtag Breakfast Daily. Join us for breakfast daily, only on City TV.
Live music, interviews, poetry, and more with your favorite personalities. Be our guest on Saturdays from 2 to 4 p.m. for the most exciting moments on TV.